Before I left my hometown, I worked the third shift at a place called Waffle House. I chose this shift because it offered the best hourly pay and decent tips, considering we were the only 24/7 diner in the entire town. It took me about a year to save up enough money to rent a place in the city and escape the middle of nowhere. During that time, I witnessed a lot of things that still haunt me. Most of our customers were truckers and random travelers passing through the town on the interstate during the late hours. The town was merely a stopover point, not a destination. The so-called locals were mainly farmers, ranchers, and folks like me who worked in the fast food and hotel chains around the interstate exit. However, the most distinctive residents were the vagrants, hitchhikers, tweakers, and destitute opportunists stranded with us. They could be stuck there for days or even years, panhandling for whatever they could get until catching a lucky ride elsewhere. Dealing with these individuals became the most stressful part of my job. Initially, I tried to be empathetic, recognizing their humanity. However, my perspective gradually shifted, aligning more with my longtime coworker, Carl, the cook who had seen it all in his 15 years there. The only thing separating him from them was his steady position at the grill. While no one ever got a chair thrown at them, Carl was known to toss turners and utensils at anyone who got on his bad side. One unforgettable night, things took a turn for the worse. It had been unusually slow that night, around 4 in the morning, when a guy walked in. Even I could sense something was off about him. He wore soiled clothes, a torn-up jacket covered in dust, and was in a state of panic. Without saying a word, he ran past us, clutching his right arm, and locked himself in the bathroom. Carl and I exchanged eye rolls, anticipating another round of dealing with a troubled individual. However, this time felt different. After a brief conversation, we realized he had been in the diner just 2 hours ago, desperately asking customers for rides, until we had to kick him out for causing a disturbance. It seemed he hadn't had any luck getting a ride, and something else had happened to him. Concerned for his well-being, I ran the check for the only customer in the store, got them on their way, and approached the bathroom. I knocked loudly, asking if everything was okay. The distraught voice on the other side claimed he was really hurt and needed a ride. Alarm bells went off in my head. Fumbling with the keys, I told him I was about to open the door, but he insisted I come in. When I did, the bathroom was empty, spotlessly clean, as if no one had been there at all. Baffled, Carl and I interrogated each other, unable to comprehend the situation. Suddenly, we heard a crash from the back room, the walk-in freezer. We rushed there to find the man tearing things up and pressing a handful of meat to his injured arm. He had a grotesque injury. His wrist was snapped clean off, his hand dangling by a thread of skin. In shock, I called 911, but as soon as the idea struck, the man started to move. He limped across the window, and as we saw him through the glass, we noticed his battered face, bloodied and broken. Carl and I, paralyzed, watched him reach the corner of the window before disappearing. We went to investigate the backroom crash, only to find the back door still locked. Nothing was making sense, but we gave up trying to decipher it. When we left the nightmarish shift and stepped into the world, we saw police and paramedics on the freeway outside of town. It turned out a man had been killed in a hit and run at the off-ramp, barely 1,000 feet from Waffle House. His body, mangled and undiscovered until daylight, had been cleaned up by the afternoon, leaving the spot cleaner than ever. Back in high school, my older brother and I worked at a tiny restaurant located in an outlet shopping center. We both took on various roles, not just waiting tables, but also doing dishes, deliveries, and whatever odd jobs were needed. After a year, my brother graduated and opted for college, so he left the job. However, I continued working there until a few months before I eventually left. One Friday night, I was scheduled for a later shift, closing alongside the manager. Usually, I didn't stay past 8 or 9 due to school, but this night was an exception. At 10:30, we received a delivery call, and by 11, I found myself driving to the given address. The receipt stated it was just 8 minutes away, but things took an unexpected turn. A call from my manager informed me that the customer had provided the wrong address. I pulled over to note the new location, and as I entered it into the GPS, a feeling of unease settled in. The address was 25 minutes away, in the opposite direction. If they had given this address initially, the order wouldn't have been accepted. Considered going back to the restaurant and informing my manager, but I was already en route, and the order was made. I continued driving, noticing the roads becoming increasingly empty. In the outskirts of town, where buildings gave way to grassy fields and trees, I reached the provided address. The row of houses was barely visible in the dark, with only a few porch lights breaking the silence. These were not the nicest houses, all single-story box-style homes. I delivered the food to the specified house, feeling an eerie sense as I approached. No signs of anyone home. I set the bag down, ready to leave. But then I saw a man standing behind my car, leaned over as if looking inside. He heard me, looked up, and my uneasy feeling intensified. He didn't respond when I asked if he needed something. The eerie sense grew, and as he stepped back, I noticed figures hurrying towards my car from the woods. Sensing danger, I rushed inside, and the man started yelling. I looked outside and saw him facing the woods, screaming. 3 figures emerged, approaching my car. It felt like a setup, and I knew I had to leave immediately. I reversed out, narrowly avoiding the man trying to block me, and sped away. I called the cops, but the investigation yielded little. The house I was supposed to deliver to was vacant, not technically abandoned, but left to decay for the past decade. The person who placed the order was unknown, and the initial address seemed insignificant. The group's intentions and identity remained unresolved, leaving me with lingering questions that may haunt me for a lifetime. If things had played out differently, I might not be here to tell the tale. In my early 20s, I found myself employed at a clothing store called Denim Haven. A year and a half of my life unfolded within its walls, spanning the years 2018 and 2019. This peculiar incident occurred one evening as I worked until 9 p.m. The initial hustle and bustle of the store dwindled, leaving me with little to occupy my time during the final hours of my shift. Seated behind the service desk, I observed a man who had been roaming the store for a while. Tall and slender, he sported a hat, catching my attention from a distance. Although he never ventured too close, I noticed him in various aisles throughout the night. He appeared again about an hour later, empty-handed and without a shopping cart. A lone wanderer, he seemed unaccompanied, prompting my curiosity about his prolonged presence. As closing time approached, the store announcement signaled the impending closure, urging customers to conclude their shopping. In the last 5 minutes, I spotted the man once more, still without any items in hand. At 9, I could finally clock out and leave. Unlike some colleagues who stayed behind for cleaning and organizing, my responsibilities ended with my punch-out. Eager to exit, I walked out just after 9 p.m. Denim Haven nestled within a large shopping area, flanked by stores on either side. A vast parking lot stretched in front of them, nearly deserted by closing time. My car parked a distance away beckoned me. As I approached, I noticed the man from earlier walking along a curb with a strip of grass, separating our parking lot from the adjacent business. Perplexed but indifferent, my sole focus was reaching my car. While on my way, I heard the man suddenly shout something. Glancing over, I saw him waving in my direction. Offering a friendly wave in return, I continued toward my car. Ignoring the oddity, I couldn't shake a bad feeling. The man, roughly 100 feet away, was now jogging toward me. Not alarmed, yet suspicious, I quickened my pace, reaching my car just as he closed in. Locking my doors for precaution, I observed the man, wearing a friendly smile tinged with bizarre behavior. Rolling down my window slightly, he greeted me and inquired about my hasty departure. Claiming fatigue from a long workday, I dismissed his probing. Undeterred, he asked for a ride home, a request I promptly declined, suggesting a nearby bus stop instead. Unyielding, he then proposed a ride to a convenience store, met once again with my refusal. Reluctantly, he accepted, retreating from my vehicle. I drove home, grateful that, in all my time at Denham Haven, I never encountered that peculiar man again. To this day, I ponder the reasons behind his strange behavior, thankful I chose not to let him inside my car.